Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm excited to show you how to make your own double-sided compartment packing cube, perfect for organizing your travel gear and saving space in your suitcase. This design features a handy compression gusset that lets you shrink your stuff down to save space, plus one side with breathable mesh fabric for easy visibility of your items without fully exposing them. In this step-by-step tutorial, I'll guide you through sewing it from scratch. This packing cube uses bias tape binding to neatly enclose all raw edges. If you're new to sewing bias binding, don't worry. I'll share my tips for stitching an even, polished binding so you can nail this step with confidence, whether you're a beginner or a pro. Grab your sewing kit and let's jump in. If you love this, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more DIY gems. Before we dive into sewing our double-sided compartment packing cube, let's go over the materials list you'll need for this awesome travel organizer. Mesh fabric piece for the top compartment lid. Exterior fabric piece for the top compartment lid. Lining fabric piece for the top compartment lid. Exterior fabric piece for the bottom compartment lid. Lining fabric piece for the partition layer. Exterior fabric piece for the hinge gusset. Exterior fabric piece for the handles. Double slider zipper for the zipper gusset. Single slider zipper for the compression gusset. Exterior fabric piece for the zipper gusset. Lining fabric piece for the zipper gusset. Lining fabric piece for the compression gusset. 4 centimeters width bias tape. Optional fusible bonding web. Here's the list of materials you'll need to craft your packing cube, so take a moment to ensure you have everything ready. If you need a sewing pattern, check the description below for a link to my shop, where you can download a pattern with clear, step-by-step instructions for both small and large packing cube sizes. Once you've printed, joined, traced, cut, and interfaced your fabric pieces, you're ready to start crafting your packing cube. Place the top compartment exterior fabric piece right side up. Next, align the mesh fabric piece along its left edge. Then, place the top compartment lining fabric piece on top with its wrong side facing up. Secure all the layers with clips or pins to keep everything neatly in place. We'll sew along the left-aligned edge of the fabric layers with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. While sewing, take it slow to ensure a nice, straight seam. Once that's done, open the fabrics to show the right sides of both the exterior and lining. Press the seam flat with an iron to give it a crisp, professional look. For added strength, you can optionally bond the layers. Cut a piece of fusible bonding web to match the size of the top compartment's exterior fabric. Follow the bonding web's instructions, place it between the exterior and lining layers, and press with an iron to fuse them into a single double-sided layer. To prevent the fusible bonding web from shifting when transferring the fabric from the workspace to the ironing mat, I will pin the layers in place beforehand. Before pressing, remember to remove the pins. Next, we'll shape the top compartment. Take the bottom compartment paper pattern and center it on the top compartment panel. Trace around the pattern with a fabric marker, then carefully cut along the trace line to match the shape. Finally, finish with top stitching for a refined look. Sew 2 mm from the previously sewn seam, ensuring even stitches for a clean finish. To make the handle strap, place the handle fabric piece wrong side up. Fold it in half widthwise, then press it with the iron to form a crisp crease along the middle. Once that's set, unfold the fabric back to flat. Now, fold each long raw edge inward, aligning them neatly to meet the center crease and press them in place. With the edges folded, bring the whole piece together by folding it in half widthwise along that center crease once more, and give it another press to shape the strap. Secure the strap with clips or pins to keep it neatly in place. Now, to make the strap all secure and polished, we'll add top stitching. Stitch straight along both long edges, positioning the needle about 2 mm from each side. Lastly, Fold the strap in half and use sharp scissors to cut 2 perfectly equal handle straps. We'll need to attach the handle straps to the compartment panels now. First, notch the center point along the top edge of the top compartment panel. Then, notch the midpoints of the other 3 sides to prepare for upcoming steps. Next, position the panel with the right side facing up. Measure 3.5 centimeters outward in both directions from this center point and mark those spots clearly. Take one handle strap and align both of its ends with the top edge of the panel. Clip or pin both strap ends to the panel, and then we'll sew them in place with a 6mm seam allowance. Make sure the strap is centered, keeping a 7cm gap between the inner edges of the strap ends. We'll repeat those same steps to attach the second handle strap to the bottom compartment panel. Once done, set both panels aside for the later assembly stage. All right, it's time to prepare the gusset loops now. First, take the zipper gusset lining piece and place it right side up. Next, position the double slider zipper along the top edge, also right side up. Then, lay the zipper gusset exterior piece on top, wrong side up. Clip or pin these layers together to hold them securely. Now, sew along the top edge using an 8mm seam allowance. Once that's done, open the fabrics and press the seam to reveal the right sides of both the exterior and lining fabrics. For an optional step, cut a piece of fusible interfacing to match the size of the zipper gusset's exterior fabric piece. Follow the interfacing's instructions and press it with an iron to bond the exterior and lining layers into a single double-sided layer. This adds a bit of extra stability. Next, align the top edge of the hinge gusset piece with the zipper gusset from the previous step. Trace the height of the hinge gusset piece onto the zipper gusset, then cut the zipper gusset to match that height, and then cut to the final length specified in the pattern to remove any excess material. With that done, top stitch 2 mm from the zipper seam for a clean, professional finish. Moving on, place the right sides of the zipper gusset and hinge gusset facing each other. Lay the wrong side of the bias tape on top, aligning the left short edges. Clip or pin the layers together. Repeat this process for the right short edges. Sew these edges with an 8 mm seam allowance. Once complete, we'll sew the binding. To demonstrate how I sew a binding clearly, I filmed a video using contrasting fabrics and thread for better visibility. Let's start again with clipping the bias tape. With the wrong side of the assembled layers facing up, position the wrong side of the bias tape on top. Align the edges carefully and secure them with clips along the top. At the corners, ensure the bias tape remains flat to avoid any puckering. Next, sew along the clipped edge using an 8 mm seam allowance. Proceed slowly around the corners to maintain an even seam. After sewing the edges, flip the bias tape to show its right side and finger press it flat along the stitched seam. Next, flip the assembled layers to the front side. Fold the bias tape inward once toward the raw edge, then fold it again to fully encase the raw edge. Finger press the folds. Check and ensure the tape's edge sits just above the original stitching line. Use clips to secure the binding in place. Aligning the folded edge with or slightly above the original stitching line is crucial to ensure the top stitching catches both the front and back of the binding evenly and securely. Now, take the fabric to the sewing machine and top stitch 2 millimeters from the folded edge of the bias tape. Again, proceed slowly around the corners to maintain an even seam. Check this out. When you line up the folded edge of the bias tape right along or just above the original stitching, your top stitching will come out super neat and even on both sides of the binding. Alright, now that we've covered the quick tutorial on how to sew a binding, let's jump back into the packing cube tutorial. Once you've folded and top stitched the binding on the 2 gusset loops, the next step is preparing the compression gusset. Let's get started with creating this compression gusset. First, we take the compression gusset lining fabric and align its top and bottom edges, folding it in half widthwise. This lets us mark the midpoint of the side edge with a notch or pin. Next, lay the gusset right side up. The zipper comes next, placed on top with its left edge aligned with the gusset's left edge. Now, fold the gusset so its right edge meets that aligned left edge, tucking the zipper neatly between the layers. Lastly, line up the bias tape's long edge with the side edges of the gusset and zipper. To hold everything in place, clip the short edges together securely. Sew along the side edges using an 8mm seam allowance. After that, flip the fabric and gently pull the bias tape away from the sewn edge. Fold the bias tape in half toward the seam, then fold it again to cover the raw edge. Then, clip the edge to lock it in place. We'll top stitch 2 millimeters from the folded edge of the bias tape, making sure the stitching is slightly above the original line to catch the back of the tape. If it's on or below that line, it might not hold the back, so let's keep it accurate. The compression gusset should now be a tidy loop, held by a stitching line. Using this line as the starting point, grab a fabric marker and mark the width of the hinge gusset on both the top and bottom edges of the compression gusset. These marks, called point A, show where the zipper tape ends. Now, open the zipper. Mark another point on the gusset, about 2/3 of the hinge gusset's width. This is point B, where the zipper reaches its full opening. Double check that these marks are even on both sides for symmetry. Let's connect those points. Draw a straight line from the zipper's top edge starting point to point B on both the top and bottom sections of the gusset. With the zipper open, align the zipper tape edges with these lines and secure them with pins. Next, mark the zipper tapes at point A and pin them to keep everything steady. Then, sew the zipper along the tape edges with a 6mm seam allowance. Now, we are back at the starting point. Continue sewing and stop approximately 6 centimeters before reaching point A. At point A, fold the zipper tapes at a 90-degree angle and pin them securely. Then continue stitching to the end, keeping that 6mm seam allowance. Finally, trim the excess zipper tapes to align them neatly with the edges. The compression gusset is done. Set it aside to assemble with the top compartment lid later. Let's dive into preparing the top compartment lid. Start by folding the hinge gusset in half, aligning the left and right edges to find the top midpoint. Add a small notch or mark at this spot on both the top and bottom edges. Next, extend that fold across to the opposite side to locate the bottom midpoint, and add a small notch or mark at this spot on both the top and bottom edges as well. Now, fold the hinge gusset again, this time aligning the top and bottom midpoints just marked. Crease gently to find the midpoints of the left and right sides, then notch or mark those points. Now it's time to attach the zipper of the gusset loop to the top compartment panel. For the top compartment panel, the midpoints of each edge should already be notched from the previous step. If these midpoints are not yet notched or marked, locate and mark them before proceeding with alignment. Place the right sides of the top compartment panel and hinge gusset together. Align the midpoint of the hinge gusset's top side with the midpoint of the top compartment panel's top side and secure with a clip. Repeat for the left, bottom, and right sides. At the four corners, make small snips, about 3 millimeters deep and spaced 3 to 4 millimeters apart to ease the sewing process. Pin the corners to secure the aligned edges of the gusset loop and top compartment panel. Sew along the clipped edge with a 6 millimeter seam allowance. For extra strength, backstitch on the handle strap. When sewing the corners, finger press the fabric and zipper tape flat to prevent puckering. Adding additional pins can help secure and align the edges in place. Or to further simplify machine sewing, you may also consider using a few hand stitches at the corners in place of clips or pins, like so. Once the edge sewing is complete, we'll move on to attaching the bias binding. Position the top compartment lid with the right side facing up. Starting at the top center, align the wrong side of the bias tape with the raw edge of the gusset loop, leaving about 2 to 3 centimeters of excess bias tape at the starting point for closing. Clip or pin the bias tape along the edge, working all the way around until reaching the starting point, ensuring another 2 to 3 centimeters of excess tape remains for closing. Finger press the start and end points of the bias tape to create crease lines. For better visibility, use a fabric marker to highlight the crease lines, ensuring easier alignment. Align and pin the crease lines in place, then take the tapes to the sewing machine to stitch the pieces together. Trim any excess tape for a neat, polished finish. Open the joined seam and sew the raw edge with an 8mm seam allowance. Next, apply the same folding and sewing technique for the bias tape as described in the previous section. Flip the tape fabric and gently pull the bias tape away from the sewn edge. Fold the bias tape in half toward the seam, then fold it again to cover the raw edge. Press the bias tape so its top edge sits just above the original stitching line for precise alignment and a secure binding. Clip the edge to hold everything in place. Finally, top stitch 2 millimeters from the folded edge of the bias tape, keeping the stitching just above the original line to ensure the back of the bias tape is caught securely. If the stitching falls on or below the original line, it might miss the back of the tape, so precision here is key. There it is, a beautifully finished top compartment lid. Repeat the same steps for the bottom compartment lid. We'll need this for assembly in a later step. We can now attach the top compartment lid to the compression gusset loop. First, ensure that the start and end points of the zipper's compression gusset loop are aligned and match the length of the hinge gusset. Then, take the compression gusset loop and pinch it at the zipper's start and end points. Fold the loop in half, aligning those points to find the top midpoint. Notch or mark those points on both the top and bottom edges. Then, at the opposite fold, mark the bottom midpoint on both the top and bottom edges. Next, fold the loop again, this time aligning the top and bottom midpoints just marked. Give it a light crease to locate the left and right midpoints. Notch or mark those points on both the top and bottom edges. Now, with the right sides of the top compartment lid's gusset loop and the compression gusset loop facing each other, align and clip the top midpoint. Repeat this for the left, bottom, and right midpoints, ensuring all 4 midpoints are neatly aligned and clipped. Moving on, let's attach the bias binding to the compression gusset loop. With the wrong side up, align the tape's wrong side to the clipped edge. This follows the same process as binding the top and bottom compartment lids, so I'll skip repeating those steps here. Feel free to refer to the previous sections for joining and sewing the bias binding if needed. And there you have it. Once you've sewn the bias tape, the fabric edge is neatly wrapped in a binding, securely attaching the compression gusset loop to the top compartment lid. Now, it's time to attach the partition panel to the compression gusset loop. We'll call this Assembled Part A. Start by folding the partition panel in half, carefully aligning the left and right edges to find the midpoint of the top horizontal edge. Next, fold the panel in half again, this time aligning the top and bottom edges to locate the midpoints of both vertical sides. Make a small notch or mark at each midpoint for reference. Now, place the right side of the partition panel against the wrong side of the top compartment lid. Line up the midpoints of the partition panel with the corresponding midpoints of the compression gusset loop. Secure everything in place with clips or pins to keep it nice and steady. Finally, sew along the aligned edges using a 6mm seam allowance, ensuring a clean and precise stitch. Once you've finished sewing, it's time for the final step. Attaching assembled Part A to the bottom compartment lid. First, grab the bottom compartment lid and place it right side up. Open the zipper to allow the packing cube to be turned inside out later. Next, take assembled Part A and position it inside the lid, wrong side up. Double-check that the handles of the top and bottom compartments are facing the same direction to keep everything aligned. Now, find the midpoints of the gusset loop on the bottom compartment lid and line them up with the midpoints of the compression gusset loop on assembled Part A. Take your time here. Carefully clip or pin along the entire edge to hold both loops securely in place. After clipping the edge, grab the bias tape and place it wrong side up, aligning its wrong side with the clipped edge. Follow the binding process we covered earlier to attach the bias tape smoothly. Need a quick refresher on sewing the binding? Just check the previous sections for those steps. Here's how it looks after sewing the bias binding. Now for the final step, simply turn the assembled packing cube right side out through the open zipper. And there you have it. Your packing cube is ready to use. Thanks for following along with this sewing tutorial. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more sewing projects. Let us know you liked it in the comments below. Safe travels and happy packing!